So Billy Bush, remember Billy Bush? Access Hollywood tape. He just confirmed what we all heard with our own ears, that Donald Trump did say all those things on that Access Hollywood bus, and that he was doing his job of fluffing up the network's biggest star at the time. So how will this play in the red states? Are they going to believe him, or are they going to not believe him?
I don't think they cared the first time about this video, and I don't think they're going to care the second time about the video.
And I don't think they're going to care about what Billy Bush has to say. They're not reading the New York Times, which is where he has an op-ed. But look, I think, over a year has gone by now, over a year, and I think Billy Bush is sitting there unemployed and seeing Donald Trump in the White House and saying, what's wrong with this picture?
Yeah. Well, that's what's always been odd to me. It's like you have, it's so odd to me that you have the guy who said the crass words, you know, grab the women by their stuff, and then the guy who just kind of didn't say anything and he did play along with it.
Yeah.
He got fired and is unemployable. What's wrong with that
Well,
picture?
look at all the men who've been accused of sexual harassment who are out of a job, and he's still in office too.
Right, and he's going to be asking himself, gee, all I did was stand there like an idiot and, laugh along, and now you've got a bunch of people in Congress who have done worse, and they're still there. Not only are they still there, we are paying their hush fund money.
Yes. And why is that?
Which I continue being really mad about.
Why is that? Anybody?
I don't know. I mean, that's the $64,000 question. I don't know, but people
actually $17 million.
$17 million. Excuse me.
$17 million in the hush
for the
fund?
entire harassment settlements. We don't know how much of it is sexual harassment.
But I will say that Billy Bush is looking for redemption, and I think that he is due it in one way or another. I think that he explains in the article that my job was to fluff up celebrities, and at the time he was one of the biggest names at NBC. He had The Apprentice on. He was a really big deal. Do I hope and pray that the men in my life wouldn't behave in such a fashion had a man been talking that way? Yes, of course. Do I think he knows he made a huge mistake? Yes. I think if Billy Bush wants a career, this is exactly the right route. Go into activism of some kind. I think your entertainment career is long dead and gone. But I think if you want to be someone who's part of the resistance, that's where I would tell him, especially with the last name Bush, might be pretty powerful.
But what about the fact that Bush, he hasn't said it publicly, not Bush, Trump, you got me mixed up. Trump has said privately, although I didn't say that. That's not me.
He said it privately.
Is it delusion? Is it mental illness? Or is it a lie?
No, people believe he is well versed in saying things that aren't true, and people believe it.
Yes.
So if people tell you you're God long enough, you're like, oh man, I'm God. Well, and that's what's happening with the Trump. He thinks he can say anything and people will believe it.
In the interview, Billy Bush said something. He said, Bush said he once called out Trump for inflating his ratings, and Trump responded, quote, people will just believe you. You just tell them and they believe you.
Yes.
So I think it's insightful into what he thinks, which is if you put it out there, it becomes true.
So to the case of Roy Moore, just to go back to that for a second, Trump has now said that those women were lying. Basically, the women who accuse him of sexual harassment are lying. And then these 70 or more...
Did Trump say they were lying, the Moore accusers were lying?
He said he believed Roy Moore. So what does that mean?
He said he's denying.
I believe Roy Moore means I don't believe him.
I thought he was just saying I needed his vote. I didn't know he was saying I don't believe
No, he said I believe Roy.
It means they got some internal polling that shows that Roy Moore is probably going to win, as I've been saying on this show. That's why Mitch McConnell is sort of hedging back as well. Listen, it's disgusting. The fact that I'm even talking about pedophilia and a candidate for Senate in one way or another. I will say I had a long conversation with it's a terrible pause line, but we're against pedophilia on this show. I will say that I have a really good friend who lives in Birmingham, Alabama. I had a long conversation with her this weekend. Hardcore Republican, and she said it's the first election she thinks she's going to sit out. She can't bring herself to do with either one of these people. It's echoes of the conversations I had in the last election, and I think we in the Republican Party have to do better. But this was a Bannon, Breitbart candidate. This is not a traditional conservative, but I do think, as disgusted as we all are with all of this, I think he's going to win and be a senator.
And the Republican Party will suffer for it.
Megyn, it could have been at either party, too. It's disgusting without a party. So it's not something that just Republicans have to work on.
Trump said this, I think today or yesterday, why we need Republican Roy Moore to win Alabama. We need his vote on stopping crime, illegal immigration, border wall, military, pro-life. And I thought to myself, so this is a guy who allegedly molested a 13-year-old, which is a crime, and he's going to help stop crime?
While he was a district attorney.
While he was a DA. And you know, you got to let that sink in, that we have the President of the United States endorsing someone who has had all these horrible sexual assault allegations against him just for
the vote.
And
The
didn't he
vote.
refuse?
Your point is very, very important. It's not about party.
Yeah.
Really, this is one point, this stuff about the sexual predator, the predators of minors. Everything right now is political. This should not be political. This should not be about right and left. This should be about right and wrong.
But I do think
this should
when
be
it
about basic decency.
But when it comes down to it, again, my friend that I was talking, like, the pro-choice issue is a big one, and she might end up voting for Roy Moore again, like, wasn't completely collectively decided. And I do think, like, this is
Who, this
so
woman you were
tribal.
talking to in Birmingham?
This
Yeah.
is so tribal, and it's so ultimately about more than just the candidate. And I don't agree with it, again, one way or another, because we're talking about pedophilia. But I do have compassion for these voters, because when you're put with these two examples of what politics is, it's so beneath what I think we all grew up with voting for.
Okay, all right, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back.